Rolling Stone recently published an article about the disparities in the music industry due to how music is labelled. The Grammys recently announced that the word urban would be removed from certain categories, starting with the 63rd annual ceremony, planned for January. Best Urban Contemporary Album will be called Best Progressive R&B Album. The Recording Academy called this change a more accurate definition to describe the merit and characteristics of R&B music. The word urban has for the longest time been used as a euphemism for black. Why the word urban is used is not quite clear. After all, rock and country music isn't called suburban music. The reasons for segregating black music in the first place need to be addressed in order to really make the industry fair to all artists, regardless of race. While some believe the term alienates black artists such as Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar and Drake, others argue the term is necessary to give black artists and black music executives a voice, and that it created an opportunity to grow an aspect of the music business that has historically been ignored and marginalised. Republic Records announced that it would no longer use the word urban, but global entertainment company Live Nation stood firm in their decision to keep it, saying, "Please don't move the current conversation away from the real issue. Urban equals black, period. The current black executives in the music business stand on the shoulders of legendary icons who fought in the 70s and 80s for fair and equal treatment inside of these buildings. On top of not having a proper seat at the table to run entire departments and companies overall, on top of the successful selling of black music to people of all races that had been going on for decades, kind of like today, on top of black executives doing the same job as their white colleagues for less money, the term black was then removed from the musical lexicon because it was too strong for advertisers who wanted to further monetize the music on a larger scale. Urban music divisions were built to give black executives a true voice and an opportunity to run and manage an aspect of the business that was largely being ignored by the corporations. See the Harvard Report. The major labels would not even be in the black music business, be it not for independent labels or joint ventures with black record labels and dominant players, largely in the 1970s. They included Motown and Stack Organisation, Sussex Records, and the Great Philadelphia Trading Company Limited. Racism and inequality run rampant in corporate America, but that is not why we are here today. We are in a fight for our lives, and we need to focus on the systematic oppression and unfair treatment of minorities by institutions and government overall. I'll say it again, we need to plot, plan, strategize, organise, and properly mobilise around the bigger conversation, not strip away the work of the trailblazers who fought to get what few opportunities we still have today. For all those who want to drop urban from the black music scene, please do your research. Leave the name alone. Urban equals black. Urban culture equals pop culture. Some argue that the term urban is not the issue, but rather the segregation of black music from mainstream music. Hence, such music isn't automatically put into the pop category and then presents a barrier for black artists. Rolling Stone said, but this back and forth misses a crucial issue. Whether labels have an urban department, a black music division, or just a hip-hop and R&B department, that music will still be viewed as separate from and unequal to the releases in the pop department. So white pop artists will continue to get pushed to a bigger audience, receiving more airplay on radio and bigger marketing budgets than their hip-hop and R&B counterparts. In reality, hip-hop and R&B is popular music and highly influences much of the music released in the charts today, regardless of race. Yet, putting it in a separate category to pop simply makes it less lucrative for black artists, the very people who created it. It has been suggested that if the term urban is done away with, so should the term pop. Otherwise, we will continue to see the music of black artists pushed only to black listeners, who make up a much smaller segment of the population. As Rolling Stone put it, we would be preserving a system in which Adele and Jasmine Sullivan sing the exact same song with identical power and grace, but Adele's version will go straight into every supermarket across the country, while Sullivan's will be pushed only to black listeners in select cities. This is nothing new and has been a debate for decades. As music executive Bill Hayward said, "Black music is the backbone of the music industry in the US today. It seems to be less affected by variables in the economy than other forms of music. The major problem is the lack of broad, open acceptance by all segments of society based on feelings that are racist in their nature." This was a quote from 1982, but could still stand today. Record companies are more comfortable promoting white artists who sing black music. Maybe black music is considered safer and more generalised when performed by a white artist. In recent weeks, so much more has come to the forefront in the debate about race. Race disparities within the music industry has been an uncomfortable debate, and as a result, often ignored by the powers that be. It is an unspoken truth that a black person singing R&B is not as marketable to the masses as a white artist singing in the same style. A white artist with a soulful voice equals dollar signs, while a black artist singing soul is nothing new. Hence the rise of blue-eyed soul in recent decades. Hey, don't get me wrong. Talent is talent and should be celebrated regardless of race. We've all been influenced by black artists and artists of other races if you're a music lover. Adele is an accomplished songwriter who has written some of the most honest and heartfelt songs of our generation. Justin Timberlake is a great performer whose songs have shaped the early 2000s and beyond. And there will never be another Amy Winehouse. Artists like her are extremely rare these days. So this is not an attack on white artists who sing R&B, but the labels and various stakeholders within the music industry should be called out on this. Not only is the white artist likely to be promoted to a larger audience, they're also more likely to be given a shot in the first place. Unlike many talented black artists who struggle to even get signed, then the ones who do have to make sure that they don't appear to be too black, so they don't hinder their appeal to the masses. Let's talk about getting rid of the word pop too, said veteran producer and record executive No ID in a recent web series. You go to your department and you say, "I got a record and it's pop." Well, black people don't go straight to pop. They don't let black artists into the biggest market. Putting a black artist into a category immediately separates them from the main market. Even as far back as the 70s, black music was put into a niche. This stems back from World War II, where music was not in full supply and had to be rationed. Music such as blues, jazz and gospel was put on the back burner and was abandoned by major labels. When black artists came back on the scene, they endured two major setbacks. One was to have their music blatantly stolen by their white counterparts. Continue watching for shocking examples of this, and the other way in which black artists were held back. In the 1950s, white performers started covering hit singles by black artists and hence introduced the song to the mainstream markets. They made more money with the exact same song, more than the black artists could ever dream of making, despite the song being written by the black artists in the first place. White artists had superior distribution channels and the promotional power of the major record labels, so they outsold the original songs. In order for this strategy to succeed, there had to be a separation of the black and white markets. This was the 1950s, when segregation across the board existed, as well as racist laws, so they sure loved soul music or R&B, but didn't like the package it came in. Here's some examples of this. In the 1950s, Etta James moved over 400,000 copies of The Wallflower, while a cover by a white singer, Georgia Gibbs, sold more than 1 million. Let's not forget Elvis, one of the greatest performers of all time, someone who was clearly inspired by black singers. From the music, to the dancing, to the style of performance, Hound Dog is listed as one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll by Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Elvis's hit, Hound Dog, was originally sung by a female black artist called Big Mama Thornton, but in 1956, Elvis Presley recorded his own version of the song. It blew up and became one of the best-selling singles of all times. It broke records. Over 10 million copies were sold. It was number 1 for 11 weeks on the pop, country and R&B charts simultaneously. The song sold record numbers that were not exceeded for another 36 years. Hound Dog is just one song of many that was originally recorded by a black artist and re-recorded, repackaged and made arguably safer by white artists to wide commercial and critical acclaim. Bob Marley's song I Shot the Sheriff didn't perform as well as it did when Eric Clapton re-recorded it. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it was his version, not Bob Marley's, that was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Then there are the artists who write and perform their own R&B songs. Fast forward today. They seem to have more commercial success from the get-go. When a song is considered R&B, it is limited to black listeners at first. But the same song sung by a white artist, and in the same style, would automatically go into the pop category and deemed to be a song made for everyone. Britney Spears' Baby One More Time was originally meant to go to TLC. Admittedly, it may not have done as well if it was forced to go into the R&B charts first, before entering the pop charts. When Justin Timberlake makes an R&B track, written and produced by a black legendary producer, Timbaland, the song is considered a pop song and promoted to the masses simply because of his skin colour. The same goes for Adele's Rumour Has It, Post Malone's Rockstar, and Justin Bieber's I'm Sorry, inspired by R&B and hip-hop, but classed as pop, and promoted to the masses instead of a niche. Black artists are considered less marketable by record companies, and they end up doing them a disservice. Even Pink was made to sing R&B at first, because her label thought she would be more marketable as a white R&B singer. She eventually started doing more rock-inspired music, which is what she wanted to do in the first place. Take the original singer in Black Eyed Peas, a group who were originally raw and unfiltered hip-hop, signed to Eazy-E's label in the 80s. But in order to succeed commercially, Will and I realised they were going to have to go down the pop route. Wanting to stay true to their original sound, Kim parted ways with the group. Within a couple of years, the group went triple platinum, with Fergie as the frontwoman. Fergie was likely their ticket to success, creating more of an appeal to a wider audience. They were no longer hip-hop, but pop. Ironically, when Kim pursued a solo career herself, she was told her sound wasn't black enough. Code for, we really want you to fit perfectly into the R&B category, so we can market you to black people alone. Meg Thee Stallion invented the Hot Girl Summer meme and released her single of the same name. It was an urban radio hit. The white singer Black Bear grabbed the concept for his own Hot Girl Bummer, and it got a huge amount of airplay on radio. Hot Girl Bummer has nearly 160 million more streams in the US than Hot Girl Summer. How many of us first hear a song on the radio and don't care about it? But the more we hear it, the more likely we are to start singing it. This is a tactic used by record companies to ram a song down our throats. Remember the Spice Girls Wannabe? After a while I couldn't get that song out of my head. They promote these songs to death and it works, but they don't typically have the same energy for songs sung by black artists. The other way the major labels profited from black music without supporting it was through distribution deals. On one hand, it really did benefit black artists because it allowed them to have access to resources to reach a bigger audience. For example, Bad Boy Entertainment would not have existed if Diddy hadn't secured a distribution deal with Clive Davis of Arista Records. The downside is that it opened black artists up to exploitation. Take LaFace Records. They were distributed through Arista. We all know how many of the artists of LaFace got tied into terrible starter contracts and basically ended up working for very little money. They reached the mainstream but didn't see the money. Such deals left the artists at the mercy of big corporations who didn't really care about them, benefiting from their music sales but not giving them what they deserved. Chili told a funny story of how she and other members of TLC, along with some prison friends of Left Eye, went down to Arista Records and demanded their money. They started removing artwork from the walls and other things of value, until Clive eventually agreed to give them what they were owed. Ahmet Ertegun, who ran Atlantic Records, when it was an independent label, recalled a conversation he had when trying to get a distribution deal with Columbia Records. His label had a successful lineup of R&B artists. And remember, this was in the 70s. So I said, well, what would you offer us? And he said, 3%. I told him we were paying our artists more than that. And he said, you're paying those people royalties. You must be out of your mind. Of course, he didn't call them people. He called them something else. Again in the 70s, labels began to realise how big the R&B market was. There was even a report released citing the vast scope of the market. Major labels began pursuing black artists aggressively and established black music or urban divisions. As the Live Nation put it, this gave black executives an opportunity to run and manage an aspect of the business that was largely being ignored. But this did not necessarily do away with racial divisions between pop and R&B. In fact, it arguably helped cement them. In the Harvard report mentioned, David Sanjic wrote, black artists don't get the same marketing, promo, and radio budgets at their labels. As pointed out by Rolling Stone, this is still an issue today. Streaming has made it harder for major labels to slot music into the pop category, but apps such as TikTok display a similar pattern to that of the 1950s. Benny and Trevor Daniel jumped from TikTok to pop radio, while Lil Mosey and Megan Thee Stallion have their TikTok hits put into the urban and rhythmic radio formats before they can be considered pop. Black artists must push through the hip-hop or R&B charts before they can be promoted to the masses, so it proves as an extra hurdle. Artists such as Rihanna, The Weeknd, and Jason Derulo get an honorary pop pass every so often. But even Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar are not exempt from it. They had to go through the process of crossing over into the larger market. They essentially have to work twice as hard to get the recognition they deserve and the same opportunities as their white counterparts. An anonymous source who spoke to Rolling Stone said, at the label, black artists don't get the same marketing, promo and radio budgets. They're met with, do you know how much it costs to go to radio? White artists who have no real following and little to no streams don't hear that. Labels will sign them and force feed their music to the market, doing everything they can to ensure the record or artist's success. Black artists break barriers at every level. Even with the music industry's unfavourable marketing structures, they still reach the masses. Look at how Lil Nas X succeeded, despite initially being rejected by the country music industry. This was in spite of fans of all races, making his music go viral and promoting it. His song wasn't charted on the country music charts, but he bypassed them and went straight to the pop charts, and had one of the biggest selling singles of all time. Black artists not only manage to break through barriers, they end up influencing the music on a great level. If the pop system didn't work against them, imagine what else they could accomplish. Do you think the pop category works against black artists? Do you agree with removing the urban category? Or do you agree with Live Nation that it is necessary in order for black music to succeed? Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below, like and subscribe for weekly videos, and don't forget to click the bell for more.